Welcome, everybody, to a marketing version of Security Guy Radio. Hopefully, a marketing version. Now, my special guest today is Evan Bloom. Welcome, Evan. You're coming from New York, is that right?
Hi, Chuck. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we got a little bit of a delay. Sorry about that. So you're with Fortress Strategic Communications. You do marketing. Specifically, some of your clients are security companies. And we've talked before, and this is a fascinating subject to me because I'm getting ready to launch or have launched Security Guy TV, right? And I'm getting into digital marketing and pop-up ads and things. And I'm still amazed at how many people in our business just don't get it, aren't doing it. I read something the other day that 75% of most marketing revenue is now coming from the internet. So with that small piece of knowledge, I'm going to hand it to you and let you take it away and tell us what's going on in this industry because I think it's fascinating.
Thanks, Chuck. The figures that you mentioned are a great indication of how the security industry, as one of the key business sectors in the US, is adopting the internet as a key marketing and public relations platform. The challenge that we find is that a lot of companies that are deciding to go it alone are not moving from a strategic platform. In other words, they see and have heard of Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, etc., launch straight into it and think just because they are providing content, video, etc., that they are PRing and marketing themselves. When we come along and we have the discussions with them that, to build your reputation, to build your brand, you need to have a strategy, you need to have a plan, and your PR clearly has to be integrated into your company's business plan. The wheels in the panic station start setting in because they realize that if they're going to be spending money without having any basis or guiding point to propel them forward, it's kind of getting lost in the ether. You've got to have something that anchors you. You've got to have some form of strategic direction. And if your PR in particular is not helping you to achieve your business goals, then for all intents and purposes, you're wasting your time and your money. And in the security world, we know that there are things that are what are called grudge purchases, things that you kind of know that you need, but things that you don't really want to spend your money on.
A grudge purchase. That's
PR and marketing consultants are.
That's a great term, grudge purchasing. Wow. All right.
Yeah, it's. I mean, people know that, and it's insurance. Into the same thing because when you buy an insurance policy, you kind of feel that you're just paying out money, and the only time you ever see a return on investment is when something happens, you've got a claim on it. Otherwise, it's just money out the door, and the perception is you never get anything back. Same with PR. It's an intangible. It's critically important. Business reputation and their ability to deliver a service, and you need public relations to help generate awareness and get people to understand what you do. PR is not sending out a brochure. It's not making cold calls. It's the broader perception and the reputation that a company builds for itself. It's also not advertising. I mean, advertising, you buy a space, you put in an ad, and you can see it and you can hear it. PR is an intangible, and it's got to be sustained, and it's a longer commitment. But the pundits will often say that it's better at building the reputation, and with the growth, yeah.
What I'm going to do, since we have the delay, I'm going to raise my hand, like in school, and see if I can get a question. Because there's such a delay, sometimes I might overlap you, and I don't want to do that. So let's go back to this grudge marketing thing. I worked at Disney. I mean, talk about the best marketers in the world. Really, right? The number one brand recognition in the world, Mickey Mouse, number one icon. How do they do it? Well, they did back in the day, it was newspapers, articles, cartoons, the movies, that kind of thing. That's a tangible. They could put an ad in a newspaper. They could see a return on Disneyland tickets going up or movies going up, that sort of thing. Why is it different on the internet when we have so many metrics? I mean, I look at my website and I get, 60,000 views, but I can't correlate that to 60,000 listens necessarily. Is it different in the internet world where the return on the PR investment part of it is not as noticeable as it is at a red carpet event in Hollywood, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think also you've got to look at your target market. People, have a very short, and I say this with respect, people have a very short attention span. Not everyone is going to come to the company website and spend tons of time looking through all your different pages. There's click-through rates and bounce rates, and the smart people in the metrics world able to quantify all of that. The way that I approach it is I look at an integrated approach. Yes, you have to have the outreach marketing that you do, where you write your newsletters, etc., and send it out. But where you want the belief factor, and you want the belief in what you're saying, and as much as many people don't like the concept of working with the media, because there's this whole concept now of false news and who do you believe and what do you believe, etc. The media still play a critically important role. If you have a PR consultancy that's able to connect you based on the value of your news with top quality publications, and help to get the spokespeople in a company, irrespective of how big or small it is, to talk about the key market issues, to be thought leaders, and to connect you with journalists, that is where you are going to see the true benefits of your PR. As I go back to my original point, just writing out an email, a couple of hundred people and spamming it, etc., which is what a lot of the smaller companies do, because they as much as they want to get bang for their buck and they want to market themselves, the strategy and the methodologies are not where they should be, and so that's what they do. And when you just spam off email, goes into people's spam folders, people block you, etc. But when you get the credibility of being in publications, on blogs, etc., on podcasts, etc., and speaking to people like yourselves, there is a greater belief factor, and you start to seed and build your reputation and your brand. And obviously you've got to follow through. If you don't have great customer service, good quality of product, and if you're not seen as an innovator, well, then you're just going to disappear into the ether, or you're going to disappear. And the statistics show this. I mean, if you look at the 100% of companies out there, the bulk of them are the small business people, and small business of the economy, and a lot of small people are bootstrappers. A lot of small businesses are bootstrapped. Now, people don't have a lot of money to invest, and they choose to self-fund and not invest in marketing, and that's where the problem is. Now, there's also perception, and I have to say this with respect to the PR industry, a lot of us have given out the industry a bad overcharging and under-delivering, and lots of companies have been burnt by this, and that's also where the challenge lies.
It seems like these days that PR should be easier and more effective with the use of the internet, but that's not what you're saying. So explain why that is. Too much space, too much communication out there? What is the disconnect between? I could see back in the day where your publicist, booked you an appearance at Tasty Freeze, and a bunch of people came and signed your book. That's all stuff that you can measure. But on the internet, just because I post something, like you said, or tweet something, doesn't mean I'm getting a return on that. Okay, so I got 50 likes. Did 50 likes turn into 50 listens for me? I don't know. Do you think a publicist could help me with that side of it?
That's a great point. If you look at the internet, and you look at all the different social media platforms, etc., there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of opportunities, and everyone's got a great value proposition. All different publications say we've got X amount of readers and followers and listeners, etc. And what I try and advise clients to do is not to be all things to all people. Select the best publications where your core is going to go. Select a smaller amount of social media platforms and focus on that. If you try and go out and get onto every single medium, etc., you dilute your campaign. When you take a debrief from a client and they say, we want to be everywhere. Well, you can't be everywhere. Not every going to give you time. Not every podcast is going to run your content, etc. We prefer to target the key vertical publications that target the industry. If we've got relevant, valid news, we go to the daily publications, etc. So you need to work with someone who can develop a targeted campaign. This spray and pray is where you dilute your value, etc. And that's where a lot of people become upset and disappointed because they're not getting what they thought they would be. And if you're looking at your example with your book signing, etc., you go to one single place, you focus your energy, and you get your returns. This, having a plethora of channels, etc., and diluting your opportunities is where you land up with nothing.
So I have, excuse me, I have, I think 9 social media sites. Now, I have things like YouTube, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Stitcher. I consider those distribution channels, right? My product is information and news, and I'm distributing it. And my currency is listeners. So if I have 0 listeners, I got no currency, right? I want to get listeners, and that equates into somebody wanting to pay me to advertise or that kind of thing. I don't charge to come on the show. I don't make money that way. Am I diluted by having 9 distribution points for my product? Is that a little different than somebody that's selling things? I'm trying to differentiate the two, because I'm very loosely, I'm a journalist, right? I mean, I interview people like yourself. I report on what they do, that kind of thing, So I'm on the other side of it, where a PR guy's trying to get in front of somebody like me, but then I also need to get in front of people too, so they can hear it, right?
Right, and you sell news and you sell information, and you need your listeners. So you necessarily diluting yourself, because you've got to go. Some people will only listen to you on a certain type of medium.
Right.
But when we look at client type, when we look at client types, for example, Facebook is a great medium. It's a great medium, and it's more skewed towards the consumer market. I mean, there's to business brands that utilize Facebook. But I would never, for example, advise a client who only sells to other businesses and they sell some super high-tech product to have a Facebook page. I mean, it's more Facebook to me in the line of work that I do is more it's more commercial oriented. I would rather them find the mediums that their target market, that their decision makers utilize. So they may be more open to for example, working on LinkedIn. They may be more focused on key industry blogs, etc. Things that are not to the man in the street. So each brand, in each value proposition, each product, good or service needs to be looked at in its entirety to decide what the best distribution method is for the content and the information. And you will find certain brands will have. Companies will have some of their brands on business-to-business forums. Some will have some of their products and services on consumer forums. And those are the smart people who understand who the end user is, who the target is, where they consume their news and their information, etc. And that's it. I mean, we see plenty of making a huge amount of money just by focusing on Instagram. If you're making a bulletproof vest and you're not targeting the law enforcement community, targeting the man in the street, someone who wants to own some form of protection, etc., that may be a one channel for you. I'm not 100% sure that someone who's focusing solely on the law enforcement market would want to go to that. There may be a valid case for it. It may be on a case-by-case basis, but I'm not sure that would be their first port of call. So to bring it back, you've got to have the product that you want to sell. You've got to see who your decision maker is, who your end user is, and then choose the most appropriate medium and channel that they utilize.
No, it's a good point. So to your point, I have about 20,000 people on LinkedIn. And I probably get, 10 or 20 people a day that invite me to join. I don't go out and ask anybody anymore because I got put in LinkedIn jail and I can't do that. But 20,000 people is a good number of followers, right? So if I get 1% of those people responding, that's a good number. But I often get, every post gets about 5,000 views, probably. Sometimes I get 10. Now, when I go in there and look at the fine numbers, I have a lot of cops and security people follow me. But I have probably 10% of that 20,000 are C-level executives, CEOs, right? And those are the decision makers. So I think, would you say that I have an effective campaign if I have that high a percentage of CEOs who are the known decision makers regularly following my show and my posts? Am I being effective that way?
Well, it comes down to that old adage, you can have 10 million people listening to you and get nothing out of it, and you can have 1,000, and it's the quality and it's the level of the decision maker. But for you to get your product, and this advice or this suggestion to you is the same for any of your target markets or any of the people that are listening in who own this, who are involved in the security industry. You may also want to look at having a viral campaign where the type of people and the topics that you discuss will create an impetus where people will say, hey, I saw this interview on Security Guy TV or securityguy.com. You should have a listen to it. And you get the word of mouth to be spread virally, as opposed to just putting something up on LinkedIn and saying something to my show. In other words, you get the people, the guests on your show, and your listeners do the work for you, and they start to spread your brand by word of mouth.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So if you have a show with graphic images, and you have a show where someone brings in a new weapon and can demonstrate the weapon in the studio, etc., those type of things will start changing the dynamics. I mean, on a normal radio station, it's listening, and it's theater of the mind. But with you, it can be a radio show or a podcast where a guest comes in and brings in a new type of dog that they've trained, or a new product, etc., and demonstrate, and that will create a different type of viral campaign where, if it's interesting, the messaging resonates and people are interested in it, something off the wall, people start talking. And you've got Twitter is a very misunderstood and underused platform from a strategic level. Excuse me. What lots of people don't realize is you can use Twitter as an aggregator to drive people to your website for further information, and that's exactly what security companies, risk management companies, bodyguards, etc. Anyone who's got a brand that they want to drive people to their website.
So, if I think a lot of people might think that a viral campaign is spontaneous, that it just happened because it's a cute little kitty cat and it went viral. Not necessarily, because some smart PR guy might know that kitty cats and puppy dogs sell like hotcakes, and you attach your product to the kitty cat or puppy dog, and all of a sudden you got a viral campaign. Does that actually happen? I mean, I'm a novice at it, but I would have assumed a lot of viral campaigns were spontaneous, but maybe not, like you're saying.
And I'm not going to mention the company's names, but I've seen on LinkedIn where and they smart. It's smart marketing where people, and I've seen the transition where people have started to sell a security product, and they have given a short write-up about it. They've had a photograph of the product, and you look at the number of likes or interactions, maybe a dozen, maybe 20 or 30, but you look at the product and it's a phenomenal product. Excuse me. About 2 weeks later, have a look. It's the same product, and I say this with respect. There's a pretty girl who's either wearing the product or is holding it in her hand, and you look at the likes and the comments, etc., and it's off the charts. There's tens of thousands of people giving the thumbs up and liking and posting comments. And if I have 5,000 followers who I'm connected to on LinkedIn, and Chuck has 10,000, and I like it, and Chuck sees that I've liked it, and he likes it, well, between us, it's 15,000 people may suddenly get an alert, etc., that we're liking this, and so
right.
The thing spreads. I'm obviously not advocating that sex sells. You don't have to have a pretty girl. You can have two guys giving some form of demonstration of a new weapon, etc. But if it's done well, if the graphics are good, if there's great messaging, if it's well thought out, you can start your viral campaign. And as long as it's built onto a PR or marketing strategy, your product can take off. And it's just how you think about it and how you approach it, and it has to be planned out. But to your other point, I mean, if Chuck has guests in and into your studio and they get involved in an argument and certain unsavory things are said, or someone pokes someone else in the eye, etc., that also creates listener value and viewer value. And people say, "Did you see the argument on Security Guy?" And so it goes. So some things can be spontaneous and some things can be planned out. It just depends on the strategy and the approach and the nuances of the interview.
So tell me what's going on in the business right now. What are the trends? Where are people going? Is the security business specifically, and that's what our show is, but there's other, probably accounts you represent too. Is the security business getting this? Are they coming along kicking and screaming, or are they saying, "Oh yeah, I think we do and should invest in marketing"? Because I go to these trade shows and they spend $100,000 on a giant booth. I don't know, and they get couple thousand people shake their hand during the show. I don't know, but maybe if they put an ad on the Super Bowl for $1 million, they get 50 million people seeing it. I don't know. I toyed with it myself, doing advertising that way, going big time, so to speak.
Well, a lot of my clients do go to trade shows, and the thing with trade shows is, it's to show the new products and services, and to open up and initiate sales, etc. The thing is, and some clients of mine don't like to go to trade shows. They feel that there's no return on investment, and I guess it depends on the product and the company and etc. But Chuck, by 2019, the security services market is likely to grow to, according to figures, to $68 billion.
Wow.
By 2020, the Homeland Security market worth $81 billion. The security industry has to be marketing and has to be building their reputation and their brand. And when people go out and want to buy products and services, they start looking at the first thing you ask Google. I mean, you type in what your search parameters are and what you're looking for, and things come up. And if you're not marketing, you're not getting out there, you're not at trade shows, you're not speaking at conferences, you're not being quoted in the media, etc., you are not going to have a presence. You can know, as much as the internet is a shopping center open to the world, you cannot rely on people to come to you. You have to go and put your brand on, and that's where it is. It's a hyper-competitive world, and it's a hyper-competitive branding world. And if you're not branding, if you're not speaking, if you're not building your reputation, you're going to die a slow and painful death. And the really sad thing is, so many security people have phenomenal products, phenomenal services, and no one knows about it because they think that people are going to find them.
That's true.
That's the sad news.
There is amazing things going on in the business. I've done over 350 shows, and mostly I've interviewed 350 different companies and people. There's a couple overlaps there once in a while, right? But for the most part, that's a lot of unique product. And I can't think of one that isn't really cool. And some of them are just beyond comprehension. They're so amazing. And they could literally save the world. And you never heard of them, right? And,
yes.
One reason I did this show is because I want people to get this stuff and understand that it's out there. Not from a sales point of view. That's not my goal is to get it out there from an educational point of view. And as a secondary thing, people, would look to buy the product. But you're absolutely right about that. There are so many amazing things out there. And I do believe they sit around and say, this is so amazing, somebody's going to find me. I'm going to get a knock on my door because they're just waiting to take my great product. Kind of like Security Guy TV. We're waiting for people to knock on our door and say, hey, let's put you on network news. But I know that's not going to happen. So that's why I try to get out there and put it out at, on 9 platforms and try and get the message out there. Now, to that end, I've been doing this about 3 years. And this year, 2 trade shows said we want you to be a media partner, right? So I'm going to be a media partner with As Is, which is, I think, the second or the first biggest trade show for security in the world. And being a media partner, having them ask me, that's no small thing. That's a big deal. And there's a couple others I won't talk about yet because they haven't signed the deal, but major trade shows that want me to be a media partner. So I think my campaign's been effective. And after the media partner campaign might be, something like network TV or something like that. So, but I see so much of this, why I like to talk about this on the show, because I know even though they go to these trade shows and spend $100,000 on a booth, Panasonic didn't want to do an interview. And I go, really? Panasonic didn't want to do an interview one year? It's just 10 minutes. I don't know why they didn't want to do it. They They don't do Twitter. They don't do any of that stuff. They're Panasonic. They don't have to. Interesting that even the big guys have that kind of concept sometimes. Now, tell us how you would advise a client on where to start. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
When I start working with the client, the first thing I do is I sit down and I take a debrief from them, and I delve into their business plan to see what their business objectives are and their branding and their marketing objectives, so I can create the plan. But I also look at who their competitors are. I look at a SWOT analysis to see where the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities and threats, and then I look at who the spokespeople are and start to build a narrative or a story. I start to build the market issues that they need to talk about. I start to build a PR campaign and a plan, and then I work off there. But here's the kicker, and I've had similar experiences to you. When I go and speak to companies and I say, I've done my research, you have a great product, etc., but I've looked at your website and there's a whole number of indicators from your website, and I say this very kindly, by the way. It shows me that that there are marketing opportunities that you may be missing. This is almost the same narrative all the time. They say, well, we know that that you're right, and we know that what you're talking about. We prefer to do it ourselves, and PR can be used strategically as a pre-sales tool to help open doors, to help make people aware of you, to educate, because what a great PR campaign will make someone think and say, hey, that's a risk that I never knew existed. These are the guys that are talking about, I should speak to them. That's how you want your PR campaign to work. Most of these companies prefer to focus on sales, and I keep saying to them, but if you can't sell without pre-educating someone, and that's where the FUD factor comes in, is people just look at you, they know that I'm right, and that other PR companies are right, but they simply will not budge because they feel more comfortable, just doing it themselves. And they're a voice in the wilderness. There's an old saying that a business without a sign is a sign of no business. And if you're not out marketing yourself,
yeah,
absolutely. And if you're not out marketing yourself, and working with a PR company to help build your brand and build your narrative and build your story and to talk about market issues and create the breakthrough, you are going to be left behind. Because technology is so great today that you invent something today, someone else copies you, thinks they can invent a better mousetrap. You don't invest in PR. They put a big portion of their budget into PR. You can be bigger, you can be better, but because their brand is out there, they get more revenue and they become more successful simply because they're talking in the marketplace. There's another adage, failing to plan is planning to fail. Crisis communications. So many companies don't even have a crisis communications plan. Suddenly something goes wrong, it's too late. Then you're working reactively. Your planning helps you proactively.
Right.
Particularly in the small business world.
I love this concept of pre-sales, because I always thought of PR as working in conjunction with, it does work in conjunction with marketing per se, right? But it really is a separate campaign.
Correct.
And it is brilliant to say that it raises awareness of an issue, of a topic. Hey, I never thought about that before. I should look into this. LifeLock was brilliant with this, if you think about it, right? You can get the same services on LifeLock. You can get the same services LifeLock provides by going to the 3 bureaus and paying, $19 a month or something like that. It was a small amount of money. It wasn't a lot of money. And LifeLock comes around and says, hey, identity theft's a big deal, because the credit companies never marketed that identity theft. LifeLock markets it. They do the same thing the companies do. They charge more money, put some insurance on it, and it's brilliant because they raised awareness of identity theft.
Absolutely.
Before, it was a giant problem. Now it's a giant problem, right? And they were in the space first. So these are really important things that I like this whole PR idea. I think most of the stuff I do is PR. I put up funny pictures. I got a campaign called Security Not. What's it? Security Not, where I put a picture of a guard who looks like he's security, but he's doing something stupid. and makes the business look bad. And that gets a lot of comments. People say, oh, well, he could be in a break. You don't know that. You shouldn't be mean to him. And other people say this makes the business look bad. It's typical guard work. It starts huge debates on the posts, which raises awareness. And so that's kind of what I use for my awareness campaign. I think it makes a lot of sense. We got let's see, we got a few minutes left. Give us some things you want to really emphasize about what Fortress Strategic Communications does and how you can help people and stuff.
Okay, well, we're a PR consultancy, a strategic PR consultancy that focuses specifically on the enterprise risk management market. So whether you make active shooters products and solutions, business continuity, cybersecurity, security guards, bodyguards, etc., and we focus on the small to medium size market. I am passionate about helping people who have small companies, small budgets, because the way that I work is I look at how much a company wants to achieve, and I design bespoke and particular campaigns around a particular company. Whether a one-man band or whether I work with companies that are 40, 50 strong, it makes no difference. My passion is helping people get their brand out there, but I like to work with companies that are doing new and unique things. And I provide the strategic PR, I provide the crisis communications, and I also, dabble in the solutions world. So I have a solution for data breaches. I help companies get ready for a data breach. I help them, if they get breached, I help them communicate. But there's also part of a data breach which a lot of people don't focus on, and that's the post breach. Once everything is resolved, how do you restore stand? And
Right.
and that's my value proposition. And that's basically, to me, is classic crisis communication. Help someone get ready for the crisis, help them communicate through them, and help them restore trust. And you know what the common factor in all those scenarios are? It's PR. It's your reputation. If you're not communicating, if you're not establishing trust and goodwill, you're dead in the water.
Well, it makes a lot of sense.
I'm here to help.
I remember when Target had their breach, stopped shopping at Target. I didn't like the way they handled it. It was just stupidity on their part that the breach happened. I didn't like it. We have a local Ralph's grocery store here. They've been in California since the 1800s, 1900s, and they did something stupid with some kind of labor strike, and we said, "Nope, going to Trader Joe's." So I spent my $12,000 at Trader Joe's the next year, and they noticed that, right? Because they track you on all those. Every time you swipe your card, they track you. Boy, we got coupons all the time. Come back to Ralph's, blah blah blah. So I think some companies don't understand that if you don't handle those things right, it does hit your bottom line. And they might write it off to a bad decision by the CEO that week, but people are very specific. People have more choices than they ever have, especially in the security business. There are so many more choices. You might have a boutique guy in LA that handles all your stuff personally. I don't need Securitas or a big company for that, right? And so the big companies who think they're king have to be careful because there's a lot more choices for people to make out there. Are you going to any trade shows this year yourself?
I hope to see you at ACES in Dallas, and hope to catch up with you for a bite to eat or a drink. But I just want to go back to very quickly to what you said about your experience with Trader Joe's, etc. 20 years ago, I was in London, and I was catching a British Airways plane back to Johannesburg, South Africa. British Airways cancelled the plane and the flights, no communications, and we were basically told that we were going to spend the night in the airport, or we had to get a hotel at our own expense. To cut a long story short, the way that they handled that still resonates with me today. I think I've flown with them twice or three times in the last 20 years out of necessity. They are still a great brand. They run a phenomenal service, but they have their problems. I mean, when the last outage happened, when 75,000 people across the world were stranded, it immediately struck a chord with me because I know what those people went through. And the same thing happened with Target. Every time Chuck walks into Target, or you're walking into a brand that's let you down, you will remember. And the statistics show, every time you have a bad experience with a tell, depending on which research company's facts and figures you read, anywhere between 7 and 11 people. And if you have a good experience, you'll only tell between 1 and 3 people. Bad news travels further than good news.
Interesting.
And
That's
PR is can be your differentiator.
Yeah, and I wasn't so upset that Target had a data breach. It happens. Everybody's going to get it. I get that part.
Sure.
I didn't like how
Absolutely.
they responded to it. I think the response is ridiculous. And that's where people don't get it. It's about how you respond to things. You can build a better mousetrap, but if you don't respond to your customers, they'll take the second best mousetrap over yours. That's how it goes, you know. Evan Bloom, Fortress Strategic Communications. Is it fortressstrategiccommunications.com or what's your website?
My website is www.fortresscomms.com.
Fortresscomms.com. Excellent.
Or
Evan,
if anyone's listening, fortresscomms.com. Or if anyone wants to drop in, it's info@fortresscomms.com.
Excellent. Evan Bloom, Fortress Communications, Fortress Strategic Communications. Thanks about talking about marketing for security companies. And we'll have you on the show again. And this time, hopefully, we'll have all the connections working better. All right. Thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chuck. Much appreciated. Thank you for your time. And thank you for the great show and the service that you do for everyone.
Thank you very much, Evan.
Take care, man.